You might be wondering, what are the signs that you're going to get divorced? I don't know what's going to make you pull the trigger on ending your marriage, or if you should or you shouldn't. That's really a personal decision. I can tell you what I went through personally. I was engaged to be married, and I had to decide whether to go forward with my wedding or whether to call it off and, start over. I wasn't married already, where I didn't need to decide to end my marriage. I think it felt pretty similar to that, in that, a lot was riding on this wedding party. It was only a couple months away, and I had to decide not to get married, or I didn't have to decide. I chose to decide not to get married. I can't tell you whether your path is going to be similar to mine or not, but I can tell you some things I did to try to assess, like, whether it was the right thing for me to go forward with a relationship or not. I did kind of think maybe once you're with someone for a certain amount of time that, things just aren't going to be fun anymore. There's going to be friction in the relationship. And at the time, I thought everyone's going through this. And the people that aren't telling me about it, they're still going through it. It's just not something people talk about. I really convinced myself of this for a long time. But I have to be honest with you, like, I did decide to call off my wedding, and a few years later I met a man and I fell in love with him, and now he's my husband, and I don't have any friction like that in my relationship with my husband. And I don't think it ever has to be like that. The person I was engaged to was a great person, but we just weren't right for each other. And if I was still with that person, I can't imagine where we'd be with having kids together, because kids adds a whole new dynamic, which I can tell you as a mother of a 1 and 2 year old, that friction, that if you are experiencing that level of friction, it doesn't have to be there, at least in my opinion, based on my experiences. And something I did to decide whether to call off my engagement is I talked to people I knew that seemed happy, because I thought they seem in really happy, loving relationships that I idolize, kind of, or they're my paradigm of a good relationship. I talked to my best friend from law school, talked to my parents. I talked to people that matter to me about how their relationships were and whether they were happy and what it looked like day to day and what thoughts they had for themselves and what type of hiccups they experience. I learned that there's a lot of people in really happy relationships, and they might have ups and downs or times when things are hard. But in general, people that are in happy relationships generally feel grateful and they see the future with their husband or wife. And at the time, I remember I had a really hard time seeing that future because things were so hard. And sometimes it felt hard every day, or sometimes it felt like this roller coaster where it was hard for a while and then I'd kind of forget about it and things would be fine, or I'd be focused on work or something else. And then it would kind of come up again and bite me, especially when things were stressful with, like, growing my business, or I was having other stressors with loved ones experiencing stuff. When you don't have that foundation of support and love and comfort and stability in your relationship at home, how are you going to take on the world? How are you going to navigate parenthood together in the same house if there's already so much friction? I don't think that's a statement on the person you've chosen to be with. They might be a great person. My ex-fiance was a great person, and many of my exes, like, it takes more than one try to make a perfect pancake, right? It's not a statement that he or she isn't a good person, but maybe you're just not right together, right? You don't have the right symbiotic relationship. You're two different personality types, or whatever it is, right? So if you have the inkling that something's not right, another thing I did is I started to do weekly therapy. I think seeing a weekly psychotherapist, I always want a PhD next to their name. Maybe it doesn't matter, but I always do. And I don't know. I personally always went to, like, an old man therapist. I don't know. But, go to whatever therapist makes you feel like there's someone that you're going to really respect and value their opinion. And that really helped me make a decision. And even after I called off my relationship, it helped me decide who was the right person for me going forward, because I didn't want to make a mistake again. I didn't want to choose someone for the wrong reasons or the wrong kind of person. So I kind of did a lot of digging about myself to learn who I am and what kind of makes me happy in order to be in that place to find the right person. So I'd suggest anyone do that that's kind of going through this kind of identity crisis or personal crisis and questioning, what you want for the rest of your life, and do you want to be with this person or not. I think that's very helpful. Things everyone else talks about are true too, right? Like, what are your values? What are your values about money? What are your values about family? How often you want to see your family? How involved you're willing to make family in your life? How do you want to raise your kids? Oh, I told my husband I want to raise my kids Jewish. He's not Jewish. He agreed, right? If you don't agree to those basic things, that can be pretty tricky, right? What are your political affiliations? Maybe that's not a big deal, but we do have a lot of people come who they're so different politically that can have a big impact, especially with something like a pandemic, right? When COVID happened, we had people that wanted to get divorced just because they had such different beliefs about COVID that it made a breakdown in their relationship on how to co-parent. With this election, there's breakdowns in relationships. It's something to talk about and not put stuff under the rug, right? Because you don't want to just have a relationship for today. You want to have it for the long term. What are your feelings about homelessness or about homosexuality or all these hot topics that, you might assume that the person you're with is going to be respectful and caring and compassionate to others, but maybe they're not, and maybe it's something you want to ignore for right now, but maybe it's not something you should ignore for the future, especially you don't have kids yet, right? Whoever is you're choosing as a spouse might become a parent to your child, so you want to be really thoughtful about it. What are your views about having kids? One of you wants to have kids and one of you doesn't. That's probably not going to change, right? So you want to be really upfront and direct about it. As a divorce attorney, I see the breakdown in relationships every day. So it was really critical for me to make the right decision because I didn't want to be one of those stories of, the people that I feel really compassionate towards and help. One thing hot topic I haven't covered, which, comes up in the majority of, or a lot of the clients we help, is mental health and substance abuse. And I think, those two topics are pretty serious topics if you're deciding whether to stay with someone or not. And if you're with someone that has a mental health disorder, that's fine. A lot of people have mental health disorders. The question is, are they receiving treatment, right? Someone that has an untreated mental health disorder can be really difficult to be in a relationship with because then you might feel like you have to be that treatment and you're not. You're your own person and you have your own life ahead of you. So that's something to really strongly kind of reassess and consider. And same with substance abuse, right? It's not your job to make somebody get sober. It's their job. And that can cause a lot of codependent issues that can really derail the health of a relationship. And there's organizations like Al-Anon, and things like that, or NAMI, where you can go in order to get the support you need to make that decision of whether to stay in your marriage or whether to get divorced. Sometimes talking to friends and family can help, but just think, do you want to be in that person's shoes that's giving you advice? Is that person in a healthy marriage that you similar to what you want to be in, or are they not? And I'm not saying just because someone's marriage failed that they're not somebody that you can rely on to get advice from. I just always kind of like to assess, is this person that's giving me advice in shoes that I would like to be in the future? And if not, I really try to see that advice for exactly what it is. So I hope you found this video informative, and I hope it helps you make the right decision for your life.